Welcome back. Seems to be in pretty good conditions, compared to the last subjects, of course. The commander is still at his home, but I'm authorizing you to keep track of her behavior for now. After all, you saw what happened last time we didn't check on her. We need to be sure that everything goes according to plan, so don't try doing anything crazy. Just try to calm her down if anything out of the ordinary happens. Oh, and don't touch that computer. I left something back home, so I'll be back in a few hours. Don't mess this up.
On March 31st, 2022, developer Pichon Games tweeted this message after showing an old computer and a date. April 1st, 1992. This date would be the title of a short game/trailer for their upcoming larger project, The Bunny Graveyard, and perhaps the date of when everything began. I'm Mo, and I like to talk about spooky games in a not-so-spooky way, and tonight we're talking about The Bunny Graveyard. It's about a cursor and a bunny named Skye who needs a little bit of help in her garden. But don't let the quaint summary and characters fool you. There's far more beneath the surface. This is your spoiler warning, so sit back, get cozy, and let the nightmare begin. Where we are, we don't quite know. The computers are old, cobwebs and black tendrils of something settled over the monitors. Their screens cracked and blank in this dark, empty room. Well, except for one. Try to power it off and you can't. There's an unknown power source keeping it active. There's also no internet access, so now what do we do? Okay, what about this little icon here? It reveals 2 sets of vitals for 2 different rabbits. Aside from the Paint app, there's nothing else we can do but click the icon shaped like a rabbit's head on the screen. But wouldn't you know it, we don't have permission to access this application. But we're persistent, so we keep trying, and as we do, the icon moves across the screen, moving and glitching with each click of the mouse. Suddenly, the screen turns dark, the icon now a permanent glitch on the screen. A final click, and we enter an 8-bit style game where our character is now a white-glove cursor. We follow a flashing manta ray, bat-bird-looking creature through a maze-like forest, and someone please tell me what it is in the comments below because I have no idea. But follow this being far enough into the woods and a crack appears on the screen. It widens until a void floods out of the screen, engulfing us, player, cursor, and all. We now get to select the bunny garden game. Then the white glove crashes to the ground. The computer is gone, and it seems as if we are now the cursor and that we have been sucked into this game. Another tan-colored glove with a ring on one of his fingers greets us, and this is number 8. We follow him into the forest, which is far more detailed than the one we chased the manta ray through. As we near a well, a dark figure jumps into it, but we can't see who just yet. Number 8 leads us to Skye's garden, where we find more brown gloves like us. Only we're told throughout the game that we're different from the others. We look different, and we're stronger. Skye the bunny seems surprised to see us too, but quickly changes her expression and greets us. She enjoys seeing her handy pals around the garden, because some of us don't even go outside. It seems like she's breaking the fourth wall here and talking directly to us, the player, but maybe that's just me projecting, because I could go outside, if I wanted. But anyways, Skye wants help with the garden, and if we continue to say no, something odd happens. Then everything is okay. She's glad you agreed to help even though you didn't. She'll be waiting for us at the garden when we're ready. And since we're literally trapped here with nowhere to go and Skye can do whatever that just was, we should probably listen to her. Do your gardening with the help of handy pal number 8. Sorry, with the help of number 42. Finish up and Skye kind of congratulates you on a job well done before excusing herself to go do something important. She leaves us to get to know the other handy pals better, but I can't look away from these dancing flowers. They're giving you the combination for a nearby tool shed, where we'll find a shovel. We'll need it later, but for now, we should do as Skye says and meet the other handy pals. They seem to have it made here with places to nap, play hide and seek, and basketball. They even have a little handy pal's cabin, which we can never enter, especially now, even though we're knocking on the door and someone is definitely inside. That's because at this moment, Skye is inside with number 8, reprimanding him for going into the labyrinth, an off-limits area near the garden. Skye tells him that doing this will put all of his friends at risk. Meanwhile, we're outside playing ball. Complete the challenge and we get a mysterious piece of torn paper. Finish all 3 challenges in the garden and the completed paper is a code. There are directional keys on this code, but also sign language that spells IL box. After this, one of the handy pals begins to head toward the well, and we follow. There's a spot just after the well that we can dig up with the shovel, and I was preparing myself to see some bunny remains or something, but it ends up being a note written on old, torn notebook paper. It was written by someone known only as C, and in it they describe 2 really tall, rabbit-like creatures gardening, recounting them as the strangest things they've witnessed on their journey so far. Return to the well and take the plunge. At the bottom we'll find a locked door with someone waiting for us on the other side. They can speak, so they're not a handy pal, and they want the password. Once inside, there's graffiti that says things like "No bunnies allowed," "No more rules," and "I love box," which explains the password, I guess. Moving on, we follow a shadowy figure down a long tunnel because that's the smart thing to do in horror games and movies. This is Boxers. He's impressed we found his secret hideout, but he doesn't quite trust us yet, so he challenges us to a competition to earn that trust. Meanwhile, Skye leaves the cabin, allowing the rest of the handy pals to enter for the night. Later, number 8 tries to venture out again, but this time, Skye is ready. She drops down from out of a tree, her hand transforming into a black claw as she tears number 8 to shreds. Back at the hideout, and Boxers is training us to fight because this is an underground boxing ring where the handy pals dress like fighters with cardboard boxes for heads. Boxers begins the match, hyping up the crowd and informing them of the change in lineup. Their number 1 fighter, Iron Punch, was supposed to be the main fighter of the evening, but their whereabouts are unknown. Luckily, we're here to challenge all 3 fighters: Handlebanks, Handsight, and Fingertaker. Victorious, Boxers tells us how awesome we are. We're free to explore the hideout now, and doing so reveals a few clues. In Handsight's bedroom, we encounter a transparent hand, and in Fingertaker's room there's a sticky note from Boxers, encouraging Fingertaker to stop avoiding everyone, noting how difficult it's been since their friend has gone missing. At the entrance to the hideout, Fingertaker is staring pretty intently at the "I love box" graffiti, and down the hall is also a secret room in which we'll find the first fighter's key. The clue note suggests that maybe someone was trying to cover up something by hiding it in the first place. Within Iron Punch's room, we'll find his costume, gifts left to him from other handy pals, and a poster of him on the floor. The information from the poster tells us that the main handy pal that controls his head has been missing for a couple days and hasn't returned since. Exhausted from almost getting our fingers handed to us, we sleep at the hideout, only to wake in the middle of the night and find Boxers waiting for us. He needs to tell us something. Boxers and the handy pals are leaving. Not just the hideout, but the garden in general. Skye's garden, because as we saw with number 8, Skye has been killing some of the handy pals, and she's been guarding a labyrinth within the forest like crazy. The labyrinth, Boxers has learned, holds some kind of way out of the garden, but ever since learning this, handy pals have been going missing. Specifically, number 8 has been missing since this morning. Boxers asks us to bring him back to the hideout if we find him. He sends us back to Skye so that he and the other fighters can prepare to enter the labyrinth the following day. So out of the well we go and back toward the garden. And now, knowing that things aren't as they appear, going back just feels a bit chilling and ominous. Nevertheless, we head back as it starts to rain, and Skye jumps down from out of nowhere to greet us. Her demeanor has changed, feigning positivity, then letting us in just a little bit, as she admits that she's trying to stay positive. Does she perhaps have some remorse for what she's done? The rain won't allow for gardening, but she has an idea. With a blow of her whistle, she startles every handy pal in the cabin, their hands shaking frantically as she announces a trip to the lake. We follow behind her, losing a member along the way, only to realize that all the handy pals have gone missing. Skye wants us to search for them, and nearby is a shotgun shell that was used recently. The remaining 2 handy pals are frightened but easily found, and with their help we manage to move a large boulder blocking a path. Curious, we wander forward and find a horrible sight. A grotesque, mutated handy pal with a large mouth and crab-like legs walks toward us. His prey, the missing handy pal that was taken earlier, now behind him in shreds. He's about to attack when Skye calls out, causing the monster to slink away back into hiding. Skye and the handy pals then arrive at a cabin by the lake. She tells them to wait outside while she talks to her old friend Nelson. But, what else are we gonna do? So let's go inside and this cutscene plays. It's short, but tense. Yet Skye seems unfazed, as if she has nothing to fear. Nelson, still poised to shoot, asks about his son, Ben. The night before, Ben went to the woods looking for Skye, but he hasn't returned home yet, and Skye's response just seems incredibly ingenuine, and this notion will be proven right soon enough. But she reminds Nelson that he's trained Ben for whatever this is, and that Ben is old enough to take care of himself. Nelson apologizes, and Skye tells him she knows it's hard to be a parent, then asks Nelson to go fishing with her, for old time's sake. We learn from Nelson that Skye lives away from the garden in a house built by her and the handy pals. Skye slips up and almost calls us a cursor, then changes, calling us a white glove instead. So it's evident here that she knows what we are. Skye sends us with Nelson on a separate boat as we row out onto the lake. We end up being on the end of Nelson's fishing line, swimming to catch more fish than Skye before the time is up. And if you watched my first Indigo Park video, you might know that playing underwater games gives me the creeps, and oh my god, did this part terrify me. From the haunting, foreboding music to the hellishly creepy piranhas and monster fish to the jump scares that I knew were coming but still made my heart race. Yeah, this whole experience had me completely unsettled. With each round, Skye leads Nelson further into the lake, until... All we have to do is survive, which proves more difficult than it sounds as giant eyeballs in the water watch our every move. The fish get creepier and more dangerous, and the time seems to move so slowly. But we win. Nelson can see his son again. At least, that's what she'd promised, right? Instead, she screams, angry that Ben has been spying on her and wanted to get rid of her. Ben and Nelson weren't fair, according to Skye, so she can't promise to be fair either. Unaware, Nelson stares out at the water as the giant fish from below rises up, bites down, and the screen goes dark. We wash up on the dock, having survived the attack miraculously. But where's Nelson? In his cabin are a lot of bandages on the floor, suggesting that he at least made it back. The shotgun is missing again, and the windows have been boarded up. We grab a lantern upstairs in Ben's room and find a note he left behind for his father. He said he was going hunting to prove himself, and he would return at night, the other gun case next to Ben's bed, empty. We have no choice but to venture back through the woods alone, and it's not too far in before we see a mutated handy pal, and it's eating Nelson's severed head. We're clearly not safe in these woods, but the key to the bridge is somewhere within, so this quickly becomes a game of hide and seek, yet the consequences of losing are far worse than they once were in the garden. There are multiple mutated handy pals that we must avoid, one of which we successfully capture in a bear trap. His movements give us the combination to a chest that holds the key, and just when we think we're safe on the bridge, another mutated handy pal rushes towards us, chasing us without stopping. We keep going as fast as we can, but he's gaining speed, and in the sheer panic of it all, we don't see the cliff's edge, and we fall into the tall grass below. The mutated hand creeps closer, but there's a flash of black and purple, and he's thrown into a nearby tree.
Number 10. What a fool. You really thought you could escape from me? You stupid gloves are all the same. Do you know who I am? I will hunt you down no matter what.
Okay then. Skye is unconscious, lying in the black goo she vomited moments before. She's unresponsive, so we carry on and find ourselves at her house. It's dark and there's a lone chair at the kitchen table, but on the sink is a photo taken by Ben. It's a picture of the woods and a pool of blood on the ground. As we put the photo down, the flowers in the room open their eyes for just a moment. Upstairs are 2 rooms. One is locked, but the other has an unmade bed and a bucket that smells awful, presumably to catch the black liquid. There's also light coming from underneath the rug. We pull it back and open the trap door beneath, only for Skye to sneak up behind us. With a crazed look in her eye and a laugh, she throws us in and we hit the bottom with a smack. But we're not alone. Ben, Nelson's son, is there and he tells us that he saw Skye killing number 8. He just couldn't let her get away with that. He knew that if he didn't do something, he and his dad could be next. So he went looking for her on his own, but things went wrong. Ben shot Skye that night, hitting her eye with his father's shotgun, but she recovered in a matter of minutes and he wondered if she was even a rabbit at all. He doesn't have a concrete plan to get us out of here, but he does have a silver ring that fell out of Skye's pocket during their fight. It's the ring that belonged to number 8. While Ben waits, we find another combination to unlock, and inside is a room with a ladder, but also a workshop with lifeless handy pals that look more like cursors. Cursors like us, and on the table one has black liquid spilling out of it, and it's still moving. Concerned that Skye could find us if we use the ladder, we find a crowbar to access the vents. Following the sound of a piano, we make our way through and come out into a room in which Skye seems possessed. She plays the piano, hits the wrong key, and stares off into space, only to resume her playing, over and over again. We can escape by hiding in the shadows as she plays, but don't let her see you, or it's game over. There are a lot of books in this room and a diagram of a white glove being changed into a handy pal, and near the exit is another white cursor encased in glass, like a taxidermied animal. We make it out with Ben, he preparing to return to his father, but he stops. He wants to know if we and Skye had seen his dad today. If we're honest and tell him yes, he asks us if his father is alive. He's heartbroken to know the truth, but he feels like we did nothing to save him and that he did everything for the handy pals, going so far as to sacrifice himself in order to stop her. But you're just like her. You don't care about anyone but yourself. He runs away with tears in his eyes, and we head toward the labyrinth to meet Boxers and the others. It's the final day of our journey, and as we arrive at the labyrinth, we see a trail of destroyed handy pals. Boxers, Fingertaker, and a group of hands are waiting at the entrance of a gate, and it seems like Fingertaker wants to go in before the other fighters return. We give Boxers number 8's ring, and he realizes what Skye's done. Skye, who is watching us from atop the gate, laughing. If only he had followed her rules, none of this would have happened and everyone could have lived their normal lives like always. Anyone who steps inside the labyrinth must be disciplined. Simple. She dumps down from the gate, blows her whistle, and all of the handy pals except for us and Fingertaker explode. We can hear Skye's heart beating, her breathing becoming faster. Her eyes widen and roll to the back of her head as a hand stretches out from within her mouth, shedding her body like a second skin. A monster appears before us. She taunts Boxers, telling him that he's weak and pathetic. And after all this time, this is how he treats his own mother? Boxers cowers where he stands, his hands over his eyes, and we don't have much time to process this information before Fingertaker punches her straight out of the scene. The labyrinth gate opens and Fingertaker stays behind, giving us and Boxers a chance to escape, and perhaps giving himself away to avenge the death of number 8 and all of his fallen comrades. Having felt as if he failed everyone, Boxers gives us a lantern and leaves. Skye, now heard in the distance, is coming for us. The labyrinth is hard to navigate, and every corner has a slain handy pal or a flower watching us, waiting to alert Skye to our location. But make it through the obstacles and the spiky gates trying to crush us, and we find a series of tunnels. The first contains a statue of a rabbit, and underneath it tells us to beware the beast by avoiding the sound of the wind. Doing this and heading in the opposite direction of the wind also reveals a statue of an eye, a carrot, a gloved hand, and a door. Reaching the exit, we come to a cliff and a massive black and purple void spinning in the sky, the same void that drew us into the bunny garden in the first place. Just as we're about to enter, to hopefully escape this place, someone calls out to us. It's Boxers. Everyone is gone and he has nothing else to live for now. He needs to know if there's more people out there. People like the Handy Pals. He can't just stay here in the garden forever. He wants to go, together. And it seems as if the void has heard his pleas because suddenly it activates, hurling us inside and pulling Boxers off the cliff toward it. He can't hold on much longer, but just as he's about to let go, Skye, or Sylvie, rather, grabs his arm. Hurling through the vortex, we avoid all sorts of debris and floating eyes until we land someplace new. It's dark at first, but then we hear rain, and we see that we're still a cursor at the center of a crater in the asphalt. There's another house in front of us, and this place doesn't feel like the bunny garden anymore. We knock, and the door opens, and staring down at us is Skye, holding a flashlight, her right eye covered with a heart-shaped eye patch. The credits roll, and if we found all the collectibles throughout the game, we get a special cutscene. It's the void again, and another rabbit, one that's blindfolded and frowning. "Damn it," he says. She's awake. Chapter 1 of The Bunny Graveyard leaves us with so many unanswered questions, as games that are split into multiple parts often do. And while game theory has already done a lot of research and theorizing on its lore, I thought it would be interesting to offer my own perspective and to cover a few things they didn't quite mention in their video. Not necessarily because they were wrong by any means, but because I found these things interesting and created a more out there idea that differs from their safety protocol program theory. My thoughts lingered more towards a combination of technology and the supernatural. For starters, let's go back to the April 1st, 1992 game. It was meant to be a teaser for the Bunny Graveyard, so I wanted to look into its symbols and codes for other clues. When we first start entering codes into the computer, the first is Bunny, and doing so places us in the 8-bit forest the cursor once found himself in. Only this time, we play as a pixelated version of Skye. Her heart-shaped eye patch visible and matching the vital signs we see before we get sucked into the computer in the future. Skye doesn't have to do anything to progress forward, but running around the forest and collecting items will reveal a number. Find the rest of the numbers throughout the map and place them in order of the colors of the computer code: red, pink, blue, green, and orange. And it spells out the word death. This is a code we can't use until all other codes are found. And if we try to pull up the research notes while here, they read, "I don't want to be here." Entering the codes into the computer reveal a variety of visuals. There's a gravestone in the middle of the woods, outer space, a sword embedded in stone, a table set for one with a bowl of carrot soup, and the void. Then the final code, the death code obtained from the minigame, causes the computer to crash, Sylvie to appear, then assumably murder us. The end scene is Skye sitting alone on a bench, possibly within the forest minigame, implying that she's all alone and that she's the main emphasis of this game as well. The corresponding notes from the different locations suggest we're looking at Skye's diary pages. They're not regular research notes or observations like we found in the Bunny Garden, but memories. Memories of watching a movie, playing a space game with her brother, and more. She mentions her mother and brother who Skye lives with in Carrot Town according to the previous character profiles on the Pichon Games website. But the visual of a table set for one with her mother's favorite dish could symbolize that she and her brother are no longer in their real home. If you're familiar with some of the Bunny Graveyard lore already, then you probably know that Skye's brother is Claudio, based on the first reveal trailer on Pichon Games' channel. In this video, it's revealed that Claudio is kind of a jerk to Skye, but he's also taken by a dark entity while he sleeps. Based on the secret ending of Bunny Graveyard in the first trailer, I think it's safe to assume that this is Claudio, and he is also trapped within the void, but not necessarily with Skye. And we can assume that Skye, or at least her consciousness, is somehow trapped within the computer, and I believe her diary pages confirm this as well. She has recurring dreams of the void, calling it an endless loop of circles, taking her somewhere, but never reaching the destination. There's also the note from earlier stating that she doesn't want to be here. Then there's the whole concept of two Skyes being present within the computer, Gardener Skye / Sylvie and Skye from Carrot Town. Then there's the gravestone symbolism in the 1992 game. Yes, the game is called Bunny Graveyard and it's implied that someone's death occurred, but Skye's diary notes don't dwell on this at all. In fact, she talks about how she's a big fan of horror and getting scared once in a while by cool monsters. As a trailer game, this serves as an obvious hint to what to expect in the Bunny Graveyard. But then there's also this drawing of a ghost, which, as far as we know, is unrelated to the game. However, I started noticing that there are clues throughout the 1992 game and the Bunny Graveyard to suggest that this is more than just a computer virus or protocol, and the void is more than just some program or application. Something supernatural might be at play. This unreleased image of one of the monsters in Chapter 2 of Bunny Graveyard reveals that they're called Gabbids, a combination of ghoul and rabbit. Ghoul, which is defined as an evil spirit or phantom that robs graves and feeds on the dead. That sounds oddly reminiscent of the mutated Handy Pals. Both are also associated with Sylvie somehow, and under her character page it's noted that Sylvie has supernatural abilities. Even this image on Skye's shirt is a ghostly looking carrot, which is the icon for Chapter 2 in the main game, but it could also just be a nod to her love of horror. The tags on the itch.io page of the 1992 game includes the terms hacking, but also ghosts. But the only characters we really interact with here are Skye and Sylvie technically, so is the developer saying that one of them is possibly a ghost? There's also the strange rabbit statue in the tunnel of the Bunny Graveyard, the profile looking a lot like Skye's. While open to interpretation, the statue seems to depict Skye dressed in a robe and being placed into a cauldron, almost like a sacrifice. These clues could suggest that Skye is in fact dead, a sacrificed rabbit that is now a ghost within the virtual world, but I'm not so sure. These computers are housed in some sort of facility, and the opening statement I gave you in the beginning talks about a commander who is away, giving this a big military/government secret experiment vibe. We, the player, are given authorization to track someone's behavior, and at first, I assumed Sylvie based on her murderous actions in Chapter 1. There's also the statement referencing the need to calm her down. But then we're given instructions to not touch the computer, and we know that whoever we're monitoring is one of several subjects. I believe we're monitoring Skye in this case, and from this unreleased artwork from the game, we see that Skye's status is asleep. Not dead, but asleep. There's also the heart monitor and vital signs in both this image and the Bunny Graveyard, further suggesting that she and Claudio are still alive. But then there's the door with an image of the void above it and a lot more monitors. I think this door is a literal portal to the void, and this government facility sacrificed Skye in a way. She's not dead, but she was placed into the void against her will. And the void itself? It seems like a network of different worlds similar to the gates in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, each pathway leading somewhere new. Those worlds, I'm not quite sure what they truly are, but I don't think they're just games. I've considered that maybe these worlds specifically house the souls of those that have already died, hence why the ghoul-like creatures like Gabbids and the mutated Handy Pals are killing off and eating characters. Skye being alive would be in a purgatory-like state, living in a nightmare that she can't wake from and forced to evade the ghouls who think she's dead too. Since this story is about Skye and her terrifying existence, maybe each of these worlds are reflections of herself and her own desires, manifested by her presence in the void. Carrot Town would be a world that's similar to the real one, meant to bring Skye comfort as subconsciously she wants to leave the void and return home. The Bunny Garden could be a nod to her childlike innocence and love of games, and perhaps her desire for her future. Both quaint and lifelike at first, fueled by a living, breathing test subject, until the nightmare of the void starts to seep in, tainting the illusion with ghoulish creatures. When we access the facility in Chapter 1, the only icon available is the Bunny Garden app. There's no inaccessible Carrot Town app or any other presumable games/worlds to enter, yet we know more exist. Looking at the unreleased image of the facility, we see that other monitors are active. We also know Skye isn't the only test subject, she's not the only sacrifice. So maybe these monitors are studying other characters that are alive within the void, each computer a separate dimension specifically for a test subject who is now trapped. If we go by the timeline based on the 1992 game, Skye is already trapped and has been in this world for over 30 years. If Chapter 1 is occurring during 2023 when the game was released, that is. The incident that took place was us, the one given authorization to monitor Skye, going against our orders, playing with the computer and entering the death code. A code that acted like a summoning for Sylvie, the dark supernatural entity connected to these worlds. Entering the code allowed Sylvie to exit her world, using the computer as a portal to kill the user and assumably pull the rest of the organization researching the void into the Bunny Garden. Based on the diagram we find in Sylvie's room, her workshop, and her taxidermied glove, we know that Sylvie took the cursors that arrived previously and turned them into her handy pals, numbered and filled them with the same black goo that she's comprised of. This goo seems to connect them to Sylvie in a way, allowing her to end their lives at will. But the goo also seems to corrupt and change them over time, with handy pals 10, 11, and 12 becoming the mutated hands that chase us in the woods and eats Nelson. This stuff has devastating consequences, and like Boxers, I wonder if Sylvie is responsible for creating all of the Gabbets in Carrot Town too. When she tells Boxers she gave him life, I don't think she means via pregnancy, but rather she made him, similar to how she turned the cursors into handy pals. This could mean that Boxers was once a bunny like Skye and Claudio before Sylvie made him into a ghoul-like entity like herself. But why does Sylvie play gardener, disguise herself as Skye, and kill all those who go against her rules? Why is she trying to keep everyone contained within the Bunny Garden? This is honestly where my supernatural entity theory hits a snag, and we lean way more into speculation since there's only so much we can go off of until the second game is released. But as I always say, all in good fun. Protecting Skye doesn't make a lot of sense to me because we know from the upcoming game trailers that Skye has to avoid Gabbets and mutated creatures within Carrot Town, so she's not safe there either. Maybe Sylvie's goal is to misdirect and contain incoming people to prevent Skye's rescue. Skye could be necessary to maintain the structure of the worlds if they're based on her subconscious, and maybe in a weird, distorted way, Sylvie was living her ideal life in the Bunny Garden, and removing Skye would take it all away. She implies that if everyone had have just avoided the labyrinth, they could have gone about living their normal lives, but Boxer says that he was never alive and that Sylvie treated them all like puppets. It seems like she's playing house in a way, and keeping everyone contained fulfills her desires to keep them all to herself, playing the roles she's given them. When she asked Boxers if getting killed by entering the void is what he wants, it made me wonder if there's something far worse than Sylvie out there. Something she's afraid of, choosing to stay in the Bunny Garden as a result. She seems to have some past feelings of rejection or competition, as her beliefs that Nelson thinks he's better than her and wants to get rid of her serve as a trigger that causes her to drop the Skye persona and kill Nelson in the end. I think Sylvie will prove to be a pretty complex character as the story progresses, and I'm really curious to see if she'll make a reappearance in the second game. And speaking of curious, there's a couple of things I wondered about but couldn't quite imagine how they come into play with the story just yet. First is Skye's mysterious injury that she has no memory of. In the 1992 game, one of the symbols that are meant to relate to the Bunny Graveyard is a sword embedded in stone, like King Arthur's Excalibur. Skye's diary page notes that she recently saw a movie with a cool sword and hopes her mother will get her one. Now, none of this appears in Chapter 1 in the Bunny Graveyard, so there's a lot to assume here. Maybe the sword is symbolic of Skye's injury. Maybe we should focus more on the plot of the Sword in the Stone, since Skye can't seem to recall it. For those not familiar, the story follows the young Arthur, guided by the wizard Merlin, who discovers his destiny as the future king of England by pulling the enchanted sword Excalibur from a stone. Or could this image symbolic of a quest also coincide with the space symbolism, in which Claudio shows Skye a Space Fighter X game where a group saves the galaxy? Will it be up to Claudio to save Skye, pulling her from the void as Arthur did the sword? Or, as the sword became a symbol of Arthur's destiny, was a sword to the eye sealing Skye's fate as well? Was the injury part of the sacrifice and that's why she can't remember it? Or was the injury so traumatic that Skye repressed it because someone close to her was the cause? When game theory focused on the simulation theory and afterlife dialogue found by game mining, I noticed a slight coincidence between Boxers and Skye within the text. Skye remembers a time when she, her mother, and Claudio went camping. Her mother thought she had heard a bear growling, so they all ran away, leaving all of their camping equipment behind. This is when Skye says, "To be honest, I think Mom has some screws loose in her head, but it's not like I could tell anyone that." We've been deceived by a cruel mother feigning innocence before, so could it happen again? Could Skye's mother be the one who removed her eye, and does her eye hold more importance to the story than we realize? When the protagonist first powers on the computer, a large eye symbol is depicted in the middle of the screen, and eyes are prevalent throughout the bunny garden as well. They're in the flowers, beneath the lake, within the labyrinth as alarms and statues, and even hurling through the void. This constant theme of being watched and observed is quite interesting, especially when you consider that Skye's visual perception is partially limited from her injury, and Claudio is purposely blindfolded, his visual processing entirely gone, whether temporary or permanently, we don't yet know. Regardless, it really makes me wonder, just who is watching us? But as always, I want to know what you think. What are Sylvie's intentions? Is Skye alive or dead, and do you think she can be saved? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Here's another one of my videos. And as always, may your nightmares be strangely cozy.